You know, it seems like everywhere you turn, there are all these scary headlines about contamination from heavy metals, pesticides, toxins. And it's not just about what's harming our environment, but also about what we're putting in our bodies. Well, that's why I was genuinely excited when I stumbled upon Puri. They are all about pure, natural food supplements. Personally, I make it a daily habit to take their omega-3 capsules, and I can't stress enough how much I love this brand. It's like a breath of fresh air for my health routine. I struck gold with Puri's O3 Ultra Pure Fish Oil. This stuff packs a punch with a hefty dose of 2,000 milligrams of those long-chain omega-3 fatty acids, EPA and DHA, all in their natural triglyceride form. And here's the kicker. It's got the clean seal of approval from the Clean Label Project and IFOS. Plus, every single batch goes through a rigorous third-party test, checking for more than 200 sneaky contaminants like heavy metals, pesticides, dioxins, and those tongue-twisting bisphenols. You can even scan the QR code on the bottle to peek at the test results for that exact batch. Now, how cool is that? Be aware of what you're putting in your body. Trust Puri like I do. Right now, Puri is offering my listeners 20% off site-wide. Go now to my special URL, puri.com/over50, and use my promo code over50. Now, this even applies to the already discounted subscriptions. You'll get almost a third off the price. Go to puri.com/over50. Don't wait. Use promo code over50 at puri.com/over50. Ready to welcome a brand new fall routine into your life? Well, here's your chance. With HelloFresh, you can indulge in the delectable taste of the season without any of the usual fuss. They've got your meal planning and shopping all sorted out, sending you farm-fresh, perfectly portioned ingredients and mouth-watering recipes directly to your front door. Say goodbye to those long hours at the grocery store and the dinner time dilemma. HelloFresh has you covered. Now, when it comes to options, honestly, more is more. That's why HelloFresh's menu includes 40 recipes and more than 100 add-on items to choose from every week. Whether you're craving something quick and easy or looking for a wholesome family dinner, HelloFresh has you covered. Get America's #1 meal kit today. Go to HelloFresh.com/50over50 and use code 50over50 for 50% off, plus 15% off the next 2 months. That's HelloFresh.com/50over50 and use code 50over50 for 50% off, plus 15% off the next 2 months. Say goodbye to stress and hello to delicious with HelloFresh. Are you tired of cycling through the endless amount of trending skincare products that all claim to smooth wrinkles, firm skin, and give you that youthful glow, but they don't really deliver results at the end of the bottle? Well, support for today's episode comes from OneSkin, founded by a team of 4 female PhD-level longevity scientists with more than 15 years experience studying the biology of aging. After testing thousands of peptides, they discovered OS1. The OS1 peptide is scientifically proven to target aged, also called senescent cells, the main source of skin aging, and actually reduces the biological age of skin by several years. Their flagship product, OS1 Face, is clinically validated to improve firmness, fine lines, and overall tone and appearance. OneSkin is for everybody who wants to prevent or reverse the signs of aging with a groundbreaking approach. OneSkin addresses skin health at the molecular level, targeting the root causes of aging so skin behaves, feels, and appears younger. It is time for you to experience a new skin health routine at a discounted rate today. Get 15% off with the code OVER50 at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code OVER50. We only have one body, one skin, and only you can choose to make it better. Age healthy with OneSkin. Hey, welcome to today's episode of Over 50 and Flourishing. I hope you are having a great week, or at least getting off to a good start. This is Monday, and I have somebody on board today who, my goodness, talk about apropos when it comes to some transitions in my life. As you know, my son just recently started college, and that can be a really big transition for a lot of parents, sort of that setup and the letting go. And there's a lot of anxiety and nervousness and preparation that goes around that. So my guest today is Liz Yokubison. She is the author of They're Ready, Are You? It's a parent's guide to surviving the college transition to help us navigate basically sending our kids to college. Today, she's going to discuss how to help your student choose the right college for them, how to let go during your student's senior year and to help ease with the transition. And then, of course, the most important, how to avoid helicopter or bulldozer parenting of your high school or college student, and so much more. Liz, I am so happy that you came here today. So Liz is from Park City, Utah. And first of all, I love Park City. It's one of my favorite places to ski. But you went from cool, fabulous weather to the Texas heat and then some.
Oh, yes. My fine hair is very afraid of Texas.
As is all of ours. Before we launch into this interview, and I'm so excited to talk about this subject with you, as apropos in so many ways for me and many, many people. But since this podcast is called Over 50 and Flourishing, I love to ask my guests, how do you plan on flourishing this week?
Oh, the way I plan to flourish this week is obviously flying down here from Park City. It was a journey. Mm-hmm. I brought one of my very best friends who started this writing journey with me, 15 years ago. So it feels like it's bringing it full circle, and it's just breathing love and light into our friendship. And from here, we fly back tomorrow night because I have a work dinner at my fun job, which is as a floral designer in Park City.
Very cool.
And the head of Park City Gardens, who owns it, who is in her 40s and flourishing, mind you, is having all the employees over for dinner at her house tomorrow night.
Oh, that's so lovely.
Yeah.
That's a great way to flourish. We talk about plant life. You saw my apartment. I love to have plants everywhere. Am I doing okay?
You're doing great.
Is my floral design okay?
Your floral design is beautiful.
Okay, good. Well, that makes me feel great. Your book is such a lovely read. It's called They're Ready, Are You? A Parent's Guide to Surviving the College Transition. So well written, just from a practical parental point of view. It's an easy read. It's simple, but it gets your head in the right space. And I learned a couple of things about you as I was reading this book. First of all, we both had our children through IVF. You got 2, I got 1. And we also had a very similar approach to the whole college process. And I really am excited to get you to break down your journey and why you even decided to write about it in the first place.
Yeah, so I was blessed with twins, a boy and a girl.
Yeah.
We did not know when I was pregnant, after many ultrasounds, if I was having 2 boys or a boy and a girl. My daughter was a typical daughter-girl from the beginning. Her butt was to the camera, her legs were crossed. By the 3rd ultrasound, the ultrasound tech was like, well, don't paint the nursery pink.
Okay.
Yeah, and she would sit like that, Dominique.
Like this.
Like this in her car seat when she was 2. I mean, she is a girl through and through. She was my ballerina, very gifted dancer. So anyways, so I had told my husband, somewhere around month 187 of pregnancy, that I'm like, I am done being the human pincushion. I don't care if it's a boy and a girl or 2 boys. This is it. This is our family.
Yes.
We have a foursome for a chairlift, a foursome for tennis. We're done.
You're good. You got a team.
And did not think that through at the time that, when I'm sending my first to college, I'm also sending my last.
Yes.
And it actually started the day of preschool. I sent them into preschool and turned around the corner and was sobbing. And one of the neighbors came up to me and said, "Are you okay? Like, my whole family is in that classroom right now."
Yeah.
And my husband had always said, when they go away to college, I'm going to take you to Europe because you're going to need it. And I was like, no, I'm not. They started preschool and start working on that Europe trip right now.
Can we go early? Yeah, so your children are 6 years out of college now.
Correct.
So this journey for you happened really 7 years ago. As I read your book, you really start focusing on the senior year of high school and the importance of that. And teeing up for success is really important, and independence and learning to do things on your own. And I really got a kick out of the whole letter package story and, just the stuff that you and I know, we were taught because we mailed things, but this generation, they just don't. And you kind of got back to the basics of getting your kids to be independent.
Well, and it's one of those things. I mean, it's our job as parents. You know, you train them well, and then you send them out in the world, and you've done your best, right? And then they kind of have to learn on their own. And so I remember their whole senior year of college, it kind of felt, or high school, excuse me, it kind of felt like there was a clock ticking down. And I was literally driving up with all four of us. Our son dropped our daughter off at college with us so he could see her campus. And I remember turning around in this big Suburban we rented to get all her stuff to college without taking a U-Haul.
Sure.
And saying, you know, you have to clean the lint trap in the dryer, right? I just had versions of her dorm building burning down.
Right.
You know, and throughout their senior year, I was trying to gently get them to do things. But the thing that really sticks in my mind most clearly is once they got their driver's licenses, I think they were probably still juniors in high school, I took them to the dentist, like I'd done for, 17 years or whatever before that. And the dentist never came out. I never saw him. He never told me about their teeth. The kids came out after they'd had their cleaning, made their appointments, and walked out and said, okay, Mom, we're ready to go. And I'm like, why am I sitting in this dentist's office?
Right.
You're perfectly capable of this, but I didn't even know at that point, how much I should be letting out that string, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I started doing that more and more in high school.
And you talked about that, the importance of when they're old enough to take themselves to the doctor appointments, to be responsible, even in the college application process. And let's talk about that because that really kicks into high gear. Well, it really starts earlier when they start doing the PSAT and ACT, and there's the stress of the test. But senior year is full throttle. So what's your recommendation of how much hands-on we should be? And at what point do we back it up and say, okay, this is on you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. The gal that helped me edit the book, I had originally written it to say, let your child manage the entire application process on their own. And she said, oh, I know one of my 3 kids that could not manage the entire application process on his own. So I did temper it to say, depending on your child. Yeah. We basically told the kids, you want to get into college, you figure out how to apply, you figure out when applications are due, you do all the homework, you know what your student ID numbers are or your application number. I don't even know what it's called because I didn't know. I just let them do it. Other people, I know you'd mentioned you hired a college counselor. I think that's a great way to go. So you're just a little bit of a step removed.
Yeah.
With twins, I had the lucky it was like a blessing and a curse. They were always competitive with each other, even though they were a boy and a girl. And so when it was first with driver's licenses. You want to get your driver's license, you figure out where you take the test for the permit, where you get driver's ed, where you take the test for your driver's license. And they were both so afraid that one twin would get their driver's license the day before another twin and then drive the other twin around. That would have been just
embarrassing.
Horror. Yeah. So the same thing kind of was happening with college applications.
That's good, though.
So they had this kind of they were nudging each other, even though it was completely subconscious.
Sure.
So I was very much hands off. I had offered to each of them, if you are required to write essays, I'm more than happy to edit them for you. And that was the only thing they used me for. We did talk as a family a lot, probably starting junior year in high school, about what colleges they'd want to attend and what was important to them. So in that instance, we kind of helped them create the parameters to narrow it down. But when it came to the applications, they were pretty much on their own. And I do think for parents, they have to be the judge of how much or how little their child needs. I would caution parents, we live in this helicopter bulldozer parenting generation.
And how?
So I would say take a deep breath and whatever you think your child needs, back off just a little bit.
Yes.
And if they need you, they will let you know.
I agree with that. I agree. And it's the hardest thing to do because you want to set your child up for success, but oftentimes you don't trust them to do it. But yet that's where the learning is. At some point you have to let go and they have to do. And there is a lot to do when it comes to the college application process. So you hand over the baton, you say, okay, it's up to you to fill out. Talk about the discussion of selecting which colleges to apply for, because it's most certainly based on your child's needs, what's a good match, but then there are also financial questions to answer too.
Absolutely. And we were kind of firsthand watching what other parents of older children had done.
Yes.
And that's kind of one way I've always chosen to parent, is whether or not another parent of an older child knows, I'm watching them as a mentor. And I've had some that are actually mentors, but I've had I've just watched from the sidelines and been like, interesting, I want to do that, I don't want to do that. I saw how that worked, I saw how that didn't work. Not judgmental,
yes,
truly learning. So I think the very first most important thing is to sit down with your child and be like, this is what we can afford. I was an only child myself, like you.
Yes.
And my parents said, you will go to an in-state school. I lived in Michigan, so I had a plethora of options. The two best schools in Michigan were University of Michigan and Michigan State.
Yeah.
My parents were Spartans, Michigan State.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I don't want to go to University of Michigan, so I'm going to apply to Michigan State. My kids to this day, like, Mom YOLO'd the college application process. One school. I applied to one school, and I got in. Yeah. Yeah. So, they were wise enough on their own. We're not going to do what Mom did, But we sat them down. We were lucky enough that we had saved since they were born, the day they were born, for college. And we wanted them to have the opportunity to go out of state if they so chose.
Yes.
In our case, we have a great university like 30 minutes away called University of Utah. And I had told them, like, you can apply there. That's awesome. A lot of your classmates are going to go there. It's our preference that you go out of state and see something different. But that was because we could afford it.
Right.
If you can't afford it and you've gone through the financial aid process and it just isn't an option, don't have your kid apply to an Ivy,
Right, because it's unfair and it could lead to unnecessary disappointment. I think those conversations are so important to have a framework and a guideline by which to operate. Liz, there is so much to unpack here, but I'm so grateful to have you. Liz Yokubison, am I saying that correctly? Yokubison. So close. Liz, there ready are you. We're talking about getting your college kid off to college and you not losing your mind during the process. We're back right after this. It seems like everywhere you turn, there are all these scary headlines about contamination from heavy metals, pesticides, toxins. And it's not just about what's harming our environment, but also about what we're putting in our bodies. Well, that's why I was genuinely excited when I stumbled upon Puri. They are all about pure, natural food supplements. Personally, I make it a daily habit to take their omega-3 capsules, and I can't stress enough how much I love this brand. It's like a breath of fresh air for my health routine. Omega-3 is like that superhero fatty acid that we all need for our heart, our brain, and those precious peepers of ours. But finding a trustworthy source, well, that's a bit of a quest. But guess what? I struck gold with Puri's O3 Ultra Pure Fish Oil. This stuff packs a punch with a hefty dose of 2,000 milligrams of those long-chain omega-3 fatty acids, EPA and DHA, all in their natural triglyceride form. And here's the kicker. It's got the clean seal of approval from the Clean Label Project and IFOS. Plus, every single batch goes through a rigorous third-party test, checking for more than 200 sneaky contaminants like heavy metals, pesticides, dioxins, and those tongue-twisting bisphenols. You can even scan the QR code on the bottle to peek at the test results for that exact batch. Now, how cool is that? But don't take my word. Even IFOS always gives them a 5 out of 5-star rating. Be aware of what you're putting in your body. Trust Puri like I do. Right now, Puri is offering my listeners 20% off site-wide. Go now to my special URL, puri.com/over50, and use my promo code over50. Now, this even applies to the already discounted subscriptions. You'll get almost a third off the price. Go to puri.com/over50. Don't wait. Use promo code over50 at puri.com/over50. Ready to welcome a brand new fall routine into your life? Well, here's your chance. With HelloFresh, you can indulge in the delectable taste of the season without any of the usual fuss. They've got your meal planning and shopping all sorted out, sending you farm-fresh, perfectly portioned ingredients and mouth-watering recipes directly to your front door. Say goodbye to those long hours at the grocery store and the dinner time dilemma. HelloFresh has you covered. Now, when it comes to options, honestly, more is more. That's why HelloFresh's menu includes 40 recipes and more than 100 add-on items to choose from every week. Whether you're craving something quick and easy or looking for a wholesome family dinner, HelloFresh has you covered. And HelloFresh is more than just dinners. You can also stock your fridge with easy breakfasts, quick lunches, and fresh snacks. Just shop HelloFresh Market and add any of these tasty, time-saving solutions to your weekly box. I personally love it when my HelloFresh package arrives. Just simply opening the box and putting those meals in my fridge just reminds me how easy meal planning is. I just pick my favorites online that are higher in protein and are health conscious, even though there are so many varieties to choose from. A few minutes in the microwave, and I am that much closer to a wholesome, tasty meal that saved me so much time and, frankly, money. Have you added up all those restaurant deliveries lately? And I just don't have the time to cook. Get America's #1 meal kit today. Go to HelloFresh.com/50over50 and use code 50over50 for 50% off, plus 15% off the next 2 months. That's HelloFresh.com/50over50 and use code 50over50 for 50% off, plus 15% off the next 2 months. Say goodbye to stress and hello to delicious with HelloFresh. Welcome back. My guest today is Liz Yokubison from Park City, Utah. Came all the way into Houston to talk to us today, and I'm so excited that you did. You're my first out-of-town guest, so actually, no, make that two. But it's thrilling to have you, and I'm glad you made the journey because you're talking about something that we have not discussed on Over 50 and Flourishing yet, and that is becoming an empty nester. You went through it. It was so strong and so powerful and emotional enough for you to write a book about it. So we are talking about the details in your book. They're ready. Are you? And we've gotten to the point of sort of working with your high school senior and the planning and the prep phase and the importance of discussing, okay, what can we afford? Where should we be looking? How much should you be doing? How much should we be doing? So once those applications go out and acceptances come in, you have a very detailed process about now examining, touring, and exploring together.
Yes, absolutely. So many parents, and I got tricked into this too, think that you have to go on all these college tours before your child applies to college. It's a good idea to go on one or two, especially if you happen to be traveling and you're by a college of interest. But so many times parents take kids on like a dozen college tours because kids apply to so many colleges these days because it's so much harder to get into. And that alone is expensive. So what we learned kind of in hindsight was that many colleges offer something called admitted student days. And this is a gold mine that did not exist when I went to college, probably didn't exist when you went to college. No. And it's basically like a college tour on steroids. Instead of being on campus for an hour and a half for your requisite college tour where you have one college student that takes you around campus and explains where, the chem labs are and where this building is and where that building is and where the best dining halls are. This is an entire day devoted to students who have been admitted to that school. And some people would go in thinking, well, they're just trying to convince me to go to the school. No, every college wants you to find your college in your place. And it's really a great way, I would say, not just for the kids, but for parents and their kids to be on campus together for an entire day. Oftentimes the kids get like great little swag. It starts with the emotive video. And I remember sitting in the auditorium at my daughter's admitted student days going, I felt this tug on my heart. And I was like, oh, this could be her home for the next 4 years.
Yes.
And as the day progressed and we went into a dining hall and had lunch, we toured the Honors College where she was accepted. She flat out told the dean of the Honors College that she didn't like the Socratic method. And he's like, well, then the Honors College isn't for you. And she's like, okay, great. You just narrowed it down.
Yeah.
And then the last place we went was a living and learning community, which is new to some colleges where they'll group students of one major together. And she was an animal sciences major, natural resources. And it was the most beautiful dorm room building I've ever been in. Like the study area had sliding panel doors and hammocks and a fireplace. It was like a separate building, right?
Didn't you say there was a living wall?
And a living plant wall.
Oh my gosh.
Because it was natural, natural sciences.
Yeah.
And we were walking back from the dorm And it was the end of the day. And I remember this clear as day. And I said, what did you think? Can you envision yourself like going to school here? And she goes, I think I want to ring the cowbell when we get back to the student union, which is what you did that day if you decided you wanted to be a Ram.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we went back and she rang the cowbell and she was absolutely 100% certain in her decision. Yeah. And we had been on a college tour there as well because she was a double major in zoology and dance and she had to audition for the dance program.
Oh, how exciting.
So she did get the exposure twice, but it was really that day of intense being around multiple students in multiple majors, multiple parts of the campus. It really just kind of shone a light on what her experience would be there.
Was it similar or different for your son?
Very different for my son. So my son ended up being a Division I swimmer. He swam all 4 years in college. I'm so proud of him, even through COVID, which was just brutal.
Oh, for sure.
And from the beginning, he was like, my priorities are in order: Division I school, urban campus, nice, good mechanical engineering program. And I'm like, okay, I don't care if those were kind of out of order. That's fine. We got the 3 top ones in there. And so it was tough for him because my daughter applied to rolling admissions, got into her top 2 schools, and was done.
Right.
She didn't make her decision, but she knew by December that she was going to go to one of those 2 schools. She even asked, do I have to apply at my other ones? I'm like, no.
No, you don't.
Yeah. Our son, the athletic department put an A on his application, basically saying, this is a student athlete, we would like him to come here. But since it was a school that was on the East Coast, they only admitted students like in March. So he had to wait till March. And so once he got admitted, then he knew he was going there. He really didn't need to do the campus tour thing because he'd been there as a recruited student. He went out for recruited athlete. He went out for a recruiting trip. And so in that moment, he'd already found his people because the swim team hosted him during his recruiting trip.
Oh, yeah.
And
he
was
a
just
moth
like,
to a flame.
Yeah. He's like, this is where I want to be.
Oh, that's so good. So now that your kids knew where they wanted to go, the next phase is orientation, right? Before you go. And you also encourage parents to go to orientation as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I know a number of parents that they couldn't make it work that summer. They'd already had their summer plans scheduled. So for those people who are earlier along in the process, you need to leave that summer after their senior year in high school open for things like this, because it literally lets you walk in their shoes for a day. Yeah. So it depends on the school. At my daughter's school, she joined us for the entry-level emotive video again, and then she was off for most of the day. But I think she met us, I believe, for lunch and dinner. At our son's school, it was really cool. All the parents were in this hockey arena high above the students who were on the ice. It was summer, so it wasn't ice. And the dean of student affairs said, okay, for the next 27 hours, we're going to be in charge of your students. Do not text, do not call, do not Snapchat, do not email. Just let them be.
They won't die.
They won't die.
They'll be okay.
Yeah. We haven't lost one yet, and that was great too, because we would see him. It was a small urban campus. We would kind of see him off to the side, and I would have been the mom going, hey,
yeah, you're like, contain it, don't do it. Don't embarrass him.
Yeah. But it really, it gives the kids, they spend a night in a dorm, they eat in the dining hall just like you do, but they get exposure to so much more than they could, even at admitted student days. Yeah. And they make their schedules. I mean, it's a whole big deal. And they don't want their parents around when they're making their schedules, and we shouldn't be involved.
But yet you get to sort of see them in action, which I know as a parent gives peace of mind. There isn't this conjuring up images of what if or what's it like. What it's like, and there's peace in that, which leads up to what I just went through not that long ago, and that is the buildup of the prep for all the dormitory stuff and then the actual drop-off day. Which is really what
still hurts my heart.
I know, Liz, and it's what we as moms just kind of play in our minds over and over. What is that going to feel like? What is that going to be like? But before we get there, I want to back it up, because I laughed as I read your book. I've got a boy. So for me, all the shopping took place on Amazon Prime days, and he gave me his list, and I called him in, and I'm like, do you like these sheets? Yeah. 2 seconds later, he's out. Do you like this? Yeah, good, whatever. And so it was like quick ordering. It took no time to fill up that cart. Everything showed up, big duffel bags. You know, we were prepped and ready to go. Boys are so easy. Girls, on the other hand, yeah, walk us through that one.
Yeah. And I have to say, because my daughter will watch this, this is not not to shine any shade on her at all. She did exactly what she needed to do to feel comfortable in her dorm room.
Which is create a beautiful space.
Right. And she did not go over the top like I know so many other girls do. But while I was taking her to the Container Store and on Target runs, and we were looking for the perfect like fuzzy beanbag, so she had extra seating in her dorm room and the perfect rug to make it extra cozy, my son would just kind of walk by the guest room and be like, there's lots of stuff in there.
Yeah, exactly.
The next week, more stuff in there.
Is all that mine?
How are we getting that all to her school? And I'm like, we're going to rent a Suburban.
Yeah.
Should we rent a U-Haul? No, we don't need a U-Haul. And then finally, like after weeks of this, he said, do I need all this stuff? And I was like, absolutely not. No. The one thing, so my daughter, she outfitted it as any other college freshman did at that time. They had the most adorable little like Polaroid-esque kind of collages that they put above their desks and fairy lights.
It's like a Pinterest board.
Yes, absolutely. And this comfy comforter and all these colors and the perfect throw pillows. And it felt like home. Liken that to in comparison to that, my son, he's like, hey, Mom, I can order all of my linens from the bookstore. Why don't I do that? Because we were flying him across the country. And I'm like, well, you can't wash them and they might not be soft. I don't care. And he like had 10 choices to pick from. He picked the plaid one. He was good. Done.
Right.
And then he like walked by the guest room one day. What's that big rolled up foam thing? I'm like, oh, that's a mattress topper.
Yeah.
And he's like, do I need one of those? Bad mom moment. No, not at all. That's fine. He got to school after the first night. He called me, Mom, I'm ordering one of those foam thingies from Amazon and putting it on the credit card. Is that okay? I'm like, yeah. How was the first night's sleep? Terrible. Dorm mattresses are like this thick and they're wrapped in plastic. And so that was one thing he needed. It pains me, I know, for the environment that you order a twin extra long foam mattress topper. But my daughter did use it another year because she was in a sorority house and they had twin extra long beds.
There you go. So,
and then passed it down to a sorority sister. So I felt better. I don't know what happened of Alex's and I don't know where it is. It went to a swimmer. I can assure you that.
Fabulous. It probably has medals draped over it. But yes, the mattress topper is important, but it's just so funny, the difference between boys and girls. I've got friends of mine, Dr. Susan, her daughters just went off to college as well, and she was taking photos of their dorm rooms. They're like, whoa, these are so beautiful and tricked out. And my kid's like, I don't care. I don't need anything. No big deal. It's just the sensibility between boys and girls. It just makes me laugh. Because it's unique and special, and you just have to honor that.
Right,
you can't make your boy be more decorative, and you can't tone down your girl.
No,
it just is what it is.
And it worked out beautifully because she was on the 5th floor, so she had high ceilings. Yeah. It was a brand new dorm, and his was all the athletes were in West Campus of his school, and it was the traditional military style dorm room with cinder blocks. I mean, if he wanted one more thing, it wouldn't have fit in that room.
Sure. So we have now all the prep and the setup, and this now leads to the exit strategy. And I got to chuckle because the way you write about it, you want to put it on them. You don't want to impose. You don't want to make it something weird, awkward, uncomfortable, right? But you're hopeful and you're praying. We're both women of faith. So you're just praying that it's not going to be, like a pat on the back on a hot, concrete parking lot or something, right? Yeah. So how did all of that play out for you? And what was your game plan for that?
So this is another reason to attend orientation. Mm-hmm. The Dean of Student Affairs at my son's college said, parents, just to set you up for, a month or two from now, there will be no Last Supper. There was one Last Supper that was with Jesus and the disciples.
And that's it.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. So, trickle it in the back of your mind. And we're a big brunch family. Uh-huh. And so I had talked to both kids and said, how do you want to say goodbye? I know there's no Last Supper. I learned that part. And so my daughter said, let's go out. Let's the four of us go out to brunch. And hers was a particularly emotive drop-off because it was the last time the four of us were going to be together. And God bless her, she is my daughter. She said the night before, Mom, I know we're going to go out to brunch at the Waffle Lab. And she said, but where do you want to say goodbye?
Oh.
And she said, I just don't see us saying goodbye on the asphalt parking lot at the Waffle Lab. And I was like, God bless you, baby doll.
Kind.
And so she started the ritual, which we then did 3 weeks later with my son, to say goodbye in front of the dorms. You had your last breakfast or your last lunch. And then in front of the dorms on that beautiful bucolic, even in the urban campus, there was a little bit of green space and there were trees and you get that picture. And that's where we said goodbye. And I knew that I had to make it quick. Yeah. And I know I have to make it quick now or I'm going to cry again. And I remember whispering something to her. I can't remember exactly what it was. And it killed me. It was worse when her brother hugged her and said something fabulous, like, I'm so proud of you, or you're going to have a great time.
Because it was the first time the two of them would be apart for a long period as well.
Yeah.
It's not just you and the children, but it's the siblings.
And I mean, they were separated by a country. I mean, it wasn't like either was going to visit the other at their respective campuses. And so, 3 weeks later when we dropped my son off, I remember thinking, like, I went to hug him, and it was one of those things. His teammates were going out to lunch. We just had lunch, but I'm like, no, go with your teammates. And so it turned out to be really quick.
Yeah.
And then I was like in my head going, I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know what I'm going to say. And he took me into his arms and said, I'm going to miss you so much. And then he said, thank you for letting me go to the school. And I was blown away. This is a kid who is one of the kindest, gentlest men that I know. But he's also fiercely independent. And I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
And that just to this day,
You got
sorry.
me. You had me at hello. Wow, how powerful. But what a beautiful gift to you.
Treasure
and your
for the rest of my life.
And your husband, who was by your side. And that was also something so sweet to read. What a caregiver, what a nurturer for you.
Yes.
He knew what you were about ready to go through, and you talked about how you just kind of lost it and started bawling, and he was there holding you.
And he just steered me away. He steered me back to the car when we dropped my daughter off. And when we dropped my son off, as we both talked about, we're women of faith, and I truly believe that God divined that bench that was right where it was. He just saw it, steered me towards it as my son went off with his friends. I sat there and burst into tears. And then when after you're done with the ugly cry, and get yourself together, I remember sitting up and taking a deep breath. And I looked up, and the bench was kind of like tucked back from the street by some trees. And wouldn't you know, right in front of us, I don't even know if he knows this, he and his teammates were walking down the street going to the pizza joint. He could not see me, but I saw him.
Perfect.
Powerful.
And you saw the transition and your son in a new world and in a new light, which is so beautiful, so amazing. I know we're about ready to take a quick break, but there's the after and what happens when we go home. And home is no longer what it used to be and what it felt like. And so I want to talk about that because it's the quiet and the dark times and those spaces that can get very awkward and uncomfortable. So I want to pick your brain on that. We're talking to Liz Yokubison, and she has written a beautiful book, They Are Ready, Are You? And it's about getting our kids off to college and for us not losing our cool during the process. And we'll be right back after this. Are you tired of cycling through the endless amount of trending skincare products that all claim to smooth wrinkles, firm skin, and give you that youthful glow, but they don't really deliver results at the end of the bottle? Well, support for today's episode comes from OneSkin, founded by a team of 4 female PhD-level longevity scientists with more than 15 years experience studying the biology of aging. After testing thousands of peptides, they discovered OS1. The OS1 peptide is scientifically proven to target aged, also called senescent cells, the main source of skin aging, and actually reduces the biological age of skin by several years. Their flagship product, OS1 Face, is clinically validated to improve firmness, fine lines, and overall tone and appearance. Unlike most skincare products on the market, OneSkin works deeper than surface level and is designed to promote healthier skin from the inside out. When you have healthier skin, you have better looking skin. Is your current skincare regimen clinically proven to reverse the molecular age of your skin? If not, give OneSkin a try and see the difference. For a limited time, our listeners can get 15% off OneSkin with our code OVER50 at oneskin.co. I'm currently on vacation, and the two skincare products that I brought with me are the OS1 Face and OS1 Eye. I love how hydrating and easily absorbing both of these products are. I also love how I'm taking good care of my skin while I'm enjoying the health benefits of some much-needed time off. OneSkin is for everybody who wants to prevent or reverse the signs of aging with a groundbreaking approach. OneSkin addresses skin health at the molecular level, targeting the root causes of aging so skin behaves, feels, and appears younger. It is time for you to experience a new skin health routine at a discounted rate today. Get 15% off with the code OVER50 at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code OVER50. We only have one body, one skin, and only you can choose to make it better. Age healthy with OneSkin. Welcome back. My guest today is Liz Yokubison, who's written such a great book to help us parents who are dealing with children heading off to college. I'm a few weeks in, so this really speaks to me in so many ways. I mean, I'm blessed. My son is not that far, so he's more accessible should either of us need it, but yet I haven't seen or felt the need, even though he's close. I feel like we've both transitioned very beautifully into independence, and I felt that separation sort of taking place the summer before he left. He worked a lot. I've been busy, and it was, coming home. Hi, you good? Everything good? Great. Keep working, keep doing. I love you, So I already felt that. So for me, there wasn't that, oh my gosh, I'm dropping my son off, halfway across the country and having to go through all the things that you did. But so many parents are in that space, and you're providing comfort in just sharing your story and your little pearls of wisdom and things that you gleaned along the way. And I'm so glad you're doing that for us. So we last left with you sitting on the bench and watching your son head off with his swim team guys for pizza and knowing that he was going to be okay. What was that drive home like?
Ooh, so it was Labor Day weekend, and we decided after dropping my daughter off at her college a couple weeks earlier, where I literally cried and slept on the 6-hour drive alternating home, that it was probably not a good idea to put me on a plane that day. So we decided to, we were out on the East Coast, we decided to go up the East Coast, and we had to go get a rental car. And the same thing happened. Cry, sleep. Yeah. It obviously, it was one of those things I didn't realize it till afterwards, what a tremendous healing power that sleep provides to us.
Absolutely.
And I can't fall asleep on airplanes. So the fact that I was like falling asleep in these cars that weren't even my own just shows me that, I think it was a little gift from God, just giving me a little reprieve and a little rest when I needed it.
Right.
So we spent the weekend up at the coast, and after like the first, I'd say, 8 hours or so, I kind of settled in. And it was really lovely to have that time with my husband. We spent a lot of time reminiscing about the kids, and I'm like, I wonder what he's doing. At that point, our kids had decided that they wanted to stay in touch via Snapchat. Okay. I'd asked them because I didn't want to be the mom calling every day,
or texting every day. Right. That's an important conversation to have.
And I didn't know Snapchat. They taught me. And the first couple times I sent a snap over and I typed in like the text that I wanted to put on it. And it was like right across the picture I was sending to them.
Way to go, Mom.
They're like, Mom, this is not working. I'm like, but I figured it out. So I could snap pictures of us. Like I would only snap him if he was Snapchatting me that weekend. Yes. And in the meantime, I took lots of pictures, and my daughter was 2 or 3 weeks ahead. So she was sending us Snapchats at that time too. So the two of us were really talking about, wow, for having twins and having them both go at once, these were very different goodbyes and very different adjustments. And I think it was good to be in just a totally different geographic space than Park City, because I probably would have stayed on the couch and just cried. And this way, we got out, we went for walks, we enjoyed lobster rolls, all the things.
All the goods.
Yeah.
All the goods. Once you got back home, because this really is a new normal and for you, some parents, it's staggered. So one goes, you may have another child still behind. So there's always the presence of a child in the home. But for you, like me, once gone. And you're married. So now the spotlight becomes the couple and you. So tell me what that was like.
Yeah, it was, I had made a decision right before they graduated from high school that I was going to quit my job. So I'd spent...
And what were you doing?
I was working for a startup, and it was an e-commerce website for a local sporting good retailer in Park City. And they were actually a very successful... It wasn't like just one store with an e-commerce website. They had the head of Jan's kept calling it like the .com was the 13th store.
Okay.
And so I had been editing and writing for that for about 5 years. And it was super flexible, but I just saw what was like the writing on the wall. I'm like, I'm going to have 2 orientations, 2 move-ins, 2 parents' weekends. And I had gotten to a point in that position where I'd launched a new website, and it just felt like a natural time to end it. And my boss at the time, when he announced it to the company, he didn't say I was quitting. He said I was retiring. And I was in my early 50s, and I'm like,
boy, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, okay, so I guess I'm retiring.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, great. And I would not recommend that. If you have a job, even if it's just a job that you do for a paycheck, don't quit that before your kid goes to college.
Yeah.
And if you have a career and you're feeling like you're drawn to something else, don't do that. Quit that right before your kid goes to college. It's tough. I mean, at least you had, how many months did you have between when you retired?
Yes, I had plenty of time because I left the station October of 21.
Yes.
So I was already more than a year of just full-time YouTube podcasting and all of that before Styles left.
And you were into your new job and your new life.
Yes.
And so I was kind of like left like, okay, so now all that's done and I don't have anywhere to go, and what am I going to do? And that was when I basically was looking for the What to Expect When You're Expecting book, what to expect when you send your kid to college. I'm like, okay, I made a mistake by quitting the job, but not quitting that job. I just need another job. But what am I going to do? And And I just didn't find anything that resonated. It doesn't mean that the books out there aren't very good. They were all just different. And so one day I had a thought, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to write a book. Let me just write an outline, see if there's a book here. And my mom had always said to me when I had twins, oh, you're going to write a book about this someday. And so the seed had been planted. And I wrote the outline that I thought was the outline, and it was the table of contents.
Interesting.
And I was like, oh.
Well, looky here.
Well, there's some there. So I kind of started embarking down that path with full support from my husband, because at that point, my little startup job wasn't paying what I was worthy of making as my MBA. And so I was just supplemental family income. So we were blessed in that way. And I was like, okay, I have to figure this out. I have to figure out if I'm going to self-publish, if I'm going to get a publisher, all these things. So I had basically a new career like you when you kind of expanded your YouTube presence and the podcast.
The book and everything, yeah.
And the book, yeah. And so he was doing his old career. I tried for like the first maybe month to try to get him to retire with me.
Because this is fun. Let's
This is great. Let's just go play. And he did take me to Europe, as he had promised.
Good. You got your trip.
And it was, Dominique, he planned everything. It was
Liz.
2 weeks of heaven. I mean, he just told me roughly where we were going. And we went to like 3 or 4 different cities, 3 countries. But it was like a couple days in each, and it was just lovely. And so that was like a nice transition too. But I think it was when we were in Europe, I said, so what if you retire with me? Won't this be fun? And we can come to Europe every year. And he's like, if I retire with you, we can't come to Europe every year. And he owns his own company, and his company was in growing mode. He was building the team. So he's like, yeah, that's not going to happen. I'm like, okay, darn, next thing.
Great idea, though.
And so then I was like, okay, now I need a hobby. And so I'm writing the book, and that was the job. But then I'd never been a hobby person, I think, and you've talked about this in your book.
Yes.
Being an only child, you would think that I had hobbies, but I never found what I was particularly good at. Crafts, not great. No, not at all. Gardening, oh, yeah. So But one thing I had discovered in the years prior was when my father passed away, I got all these, like you, I got all these beautiful flower arrangements.
Yes.
And as the flower arrangements, things would start to wilt, I'd start taking out of one and combining to another.
Yeah.
And it just felt like Ron would watch me and be like, wow, you're like, A, really good at this, and B, this is like what you're like when you're in organizing mode, which that's my hobby, is organizing.
See?
It makes me so happy.
It came together.
And so I was like, maybe I'll just kind of explore this. And I ended up, I guess it was their sophomore year. I got a job as a freelance floral designer for a very high-end florist in Park City. She actually had one of the fancy luxury hotels as one of her clients. And it was like it was the guests of the hotel, not the hotel itself. So if the concierge called and said, Mr. and Mrs. Adams need a flower arrangement in room 222, they were the person she'd call. And so she took me under her wing, taught me all these wonderful things. And I did that for a year and learned
so much, I can imagine.
What a
gift.
much. Yeah.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, yay me, I have a hobby.
Yes.
And then the other thing that kind of fortuitously fell in my lap was I crashed a mothers of preschoolers meeting at our church because there was an author. And I wanted to ask the author about why she had self-published versus going with a publisher. And by the end of the MOPS meeting, because I couldn't keep my mouth shut, they asked me to be a mentor mom.
Imagine that.
And I was like, oh, that sounds like fun. What's that? I'll do it. And so that was like, I kind of put all these pieces together like in your book, but didn't realize what I was doing. I had the job, I had the hobby, and this was my service.
Oh.
And so I'm going on, over 5 years as a mentor mom for mothers of preschoolers.
Fabulous.
And I get so much back from these young mamas. I mean, it just takes you back to when your kids were little.
Yes.
And it's a lovely way to give back to my community, my church, and other mamas in a totally different way than the book, right? From one end to the other.
Yes, but isn't it amazing that God gives you exactly what you need when you need it? And he drops it on you.
He dropped it on me. Yeah.
That is fabulous. So are all three things still going on in tandem now?
All three things are still good. Well, the book is
published.
The book is published. I still write blogs on my website.
Great.
I have a couple different partnerships. So I write guest blogs for one of my partners, which is the college tour on Amazon. They actually had approached me about 6 months ago and said, would you write a blog about our website? And it's a virtual college tour website. I said, well, I need to investigate. I get asked to write guest blogs a lot, and I only write guest blogs about things that I would use myself.
Absolutely.
And it's actually a tremendous resource because it's filmed and produced by Amazon. So there's another website out there called campusreal.com, and they basically just have college students like walking around going, there's my dorm room, this is where I go to class, this is the dining hall, this is where I go work out. This is just a little bit more, a lot more elevated than that. It has a very lovely host, Alex Boylton, and he and I spent an hour on the phone together while I was deciding if I was going to write the blog or not. And I got off the phone and I'm like, yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm doing this.
Right. Yeah. So they had approached me like 3 months ago and said, we're going to start putting blogs on our website. Would you like to be a guest blogger? And so I do that, and then I also post a few blogs on my website. But the writing's kind of taken a back seat to all the other stuff because, as you know, as you've talked about with mentoring, when you're mentoring young mamas, then somebody else discovers you and says, will you mentor me? And I've had an opportunity to mentor somebody else at our church who is not a young mother and is just a lovely soul. And I just hope that I can come alongside her and help her.
Yeah, it's so fruitful to give back in that way. It truly is. And how wonderful to hear how you have redefined yourself. You know, you're always mom, you always will be, but now your purpose has been in you and developing you and in service, which is such a beautiful, wonderful, and amazing thing. But we can't forget that we're still mom. And even though the kids are off to college, they're not gone forever. Right. There's still, holiday breaks. There's still summer breaks. And it's interesting because now your role is different, right? And they're coming home and they're seeing something very different in you. So let's walk through that dynamic and expectations and how everybody's sort of getting used to everybody now on a part-time basis.
Yeah. I remember the first time they came home. Oh, I think my son... I guess he came home for Thanksgiving his first year, but I remember the first year he didn't come home for Thanksgiving. I was like, what do you mean you're not coming home for Thanksgiving? And then my husband reminded me, it's better he's here for Christmas than Thanksgiving if you have to pick between
your holidays.
The two. So the first couple times they came home, it was, thrilled that they were here. You go to bed at night and you're like,
they're all under
my nest is full.
Yes.
Everything's great.
Yeah.
And now that my kids have both, they've been out of college for 2 years now. By the grace of God, they're both working in their chosen fields. They're happy. They're settled. Their lives are full. Couldn't ask for anything better. And I have to say, I enjoy them more now than I ever have. They are the most incredible young adults. And great friends that have welcomed us in. My son's nickname, because nobody can say Yokubison, on the swim team was Yogi. So
Yogi.
Ron and myself and our daughter, we became the Yogis.
Okay.
Or Mr. and Mrs. Yogi. Yeah. And, so that's just kind of a lovely thing. You get to be surrogate parents to these other kids.
Yeah.
And all it takes with college kids, it's just like high school kids, Dominique. You just talk to them. You ask them about themselves, and they will open up and just be the most lovely interactions that you can ever imagine.
Yes.
So I kind of feel like we kind of adopted the swim team, and we kind of adopted the sorority sisters
and the ballet people.
Yeah, and they just all kind of came
in.
along. Yeah. And now our son lives actually close to us. So,
okay. Oh, bonus.
Yes. So he only sleeps in his room now around Christmas time for maybe 2 nights. But when that happens and his sister's home, I still get that feeling.
You get the goosebumps, don't you?
Since she lives out of state, when she comes home, and she comes home pretty frequently because she lives in a very hot, humid climate, not Houston, but very similar. She'll come home and she'll be home for 2 or 3 days, and it just feels like this is how it's supposed to be. I would never say we really had the growing pains of like, you need to come home on time, la la la. I feel like they both, when they came home, they were home and they wanted to be here, and they determined how long they were going to be here. Yeah. And then they left. And as long as I respected those boundaries, we were never tugging.
You just said the key word right there. And as I read your book and as I've been listening to you throughout this podcast, the one word that resonates with me in how you've chosen to parent through this whole process is the word respect. And I see how well it has served you, your husband, and your children, because you have avoided all of this unnecessary conflict, and you've allowed them to call shots when it was time for them to call shots, and to have a voice, and for you to be a listening ear. And that's the greatest gift we can give our children, is to want to hear them, to not pass judgment, to listen with an open heart and an open mind. And it's amazing how they come running back that way. And that's the gift, when you get to sit there and say, oh my goodness, for 2 days my nest is full. And it's a beautiful thing to have.
And we still vacation with them. That's what I wrote a blog about that right at the beginning. Vacation with your college kids, absolutely. So we had always vacationed, just the 4 of us. We didn't do other vacations with other families. It's a beautiful thing about twins. They always have a playmate.
Sure.
And I remember this was an interesting thing that I didn't mention for their senior year in high school. In Park City, I don't know if this is a Houston thing, many seniors in high school go on spring break by themselves. And I grew up in the generation where Natalie Holloway went missing. And so I had determined, no way, no how. Are you going away when you're not even 18 with somebody to another country or where people, where all these bad things could potentially happen to you? So instead of, and ever since they were little, I think it was a twin thing, I'd always give them a choice. Not, do you want fruit or do you want vegetables, or do you want fruit or do you want chocolate milk? It was like, do you want watermelon or cantaloupe? And so did the same thing to them their senior year in high school and said, hey, it's our last spring break together. Why don't you guys pick anywhere you want to go? We're going to pay for it. And they were like, really?
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, I was ready for Europe or something like really exotic. They chose Hawaii, which was very expensive.
Yes.
And it never came up like we want to go on spring break with our friends.
Other people.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we were in Hawaii, and I remember, we all have our spots in the car. I don't know if you and Styles have your spots in the car, but
it's just driver and passenger and rotating now.
But when there's 4 of us in the car, right?
Yeah.
The kids are always in the back, and my son is literally in the same spot he was when he was 3 years old, when I had to turn around and grab his leg when my daughter would be like, Mom, he's falling asleep.
Right.
No, you can't fall asleep before nap time, So he's in the same spot. We're all in our same spots. And I remember driving along and we're laughing about something. I said, gosh, I'm going to miss this. And the kids are like, Mom, we're just going to college. I said, no, I'm going to miss family vacations. And they were both offended. What do you mean you're going to miss family vacations? Yeah. We're still going on family vacations when we're in college. And I was like, well, you guys are going to want to be with your college friends. No, we'll do you too. We want to be with you guys too.
Wow.
And it was last September, the 4 of us went to the Oregon wine country together. And it was
so
fabulous.
good. And they're 6 years post college, right?
2 years post college.
So yeah, 6
they're 24 years old.
Amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. And you're traveling together.
Yeah.
I love it. You did it right, Liz. You really did. And I'm so glad that God put that seed in your heart to write about it, and that outline formed, and you just filled in the blanks with everything, because you have such a great positive story to tell. You take the fear out of it, and it's teeing it up for success. So we're going to put a link to your book and where people can find you, your blogs, if they can want to read more. But Liz Yokubison, There Ready Are You? Parents' Guide to Surviving the College Transition. Absolute joy to read. It's quick. It will kind of put your mind at ease, but it will get you thinking about some really important things, so that you make sure you're doing it right, and that there's healthy engagement between you and your child or children, and you remove the contention and you empower, right? You empower them to make healthy, good decisions and feel a part of the process. So.
Well, and I think the other thing parents need to know, I just had this lovely woman comment on my blog yesterday. She's like, well, I'm late to the party on finding this blog because you wrote it in 21, but oh, thank you so much, because I feel less alone.
Yes.
So the most important thing for parents to know, they're not going through this. We all go through this together.
Absolutely.
So reach out to somebody and don't feel like you have to walk the journey alone.
Yeah. And you know what? You bring up a really good point. Not only are we not alone, but everybody's experience with it is a little bit different. It could be a lot different. And I think listening and honoring and hearing that person out is very, very healthy. Sometimes people just need to talk. Sometimes people need to sleep in a car and cry, for a drive. And I think it's all important to discuss and share, because we find ourselves through other people's stories too. Yeah. Liz, thank you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your time in Houston. We've got good food and good shopping, so soak it all up, and then you can get back to your nice, cool Park City.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. I really appreciate you. What an absolute delight Liz was. I literally could have talked to her for hours, and I'm so grateful that she honored and wrote about what was put in her heart. And, I think that speaks to all of us. If there's a seed being planted, you never know where that seed might lead, and what a guide and a resource and just a wonderful, wonderful support she is for parents like me and so many of us out there who are adjusting to our children being off in college and this new normal in our lives. Grateful for her, grateful for all the guests, and would love to hear your comments. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment below. You can comment about this video or any particular ideas you have for future episodes of Over 50 and Flourishing. If you're listening wherever you listen to podcasts, really important to rate this podcast. Give me your 5 stars, give us a good review, subscribe, share me with those that you know and you love to be able to grow this community. But it's such a blessing to be here and to be able to be an outlet for those of us who are over 50 and want to flourish. And we'll see you next week.